Welcome back to Hardball. Wall Street executives tone deaf when it comes to pay. Some of the same firms that were bailed out by taxpayer money have now set aside billions for bonuses. President Obama and his staff have made their anger clear, but what can or will they do about it? Right now, the New York Times reporter Andrew Ross Sorkin's joining us right now. He covers Wall Street for the New York Times. He's author of the big new book, just came out today, Too Big to Fail. This book's too big to fail. The inside story of how Wall Street and Washington fought to save the financial system and themselves. Andrew, you know it all. You're one of the smartest people around, the best writers around. You got about 5 minutes here to explain this. What is going on in New York? Do they just not give a rat's ass about what the American people think? I'm looking at these numbers. $140 billion in bonuses set aside compared to a year ago when things were cool. Hanky-panky. I mean, everything was great last year. Goldman's got a $3.1 billion profit coming this third quarter, off this third quarter. And they don't seem to have anything but they're just doing super, and they're grabbing it all. So what's going on?
Well, you're absolutely right, Chris. There's a tin-ear element to this whole situation, which is I'm not sure they've owned up to the responsibility they have to the community and the country as opposed to the shareholder. And that is where the disconnect is. You know, and this is still a problem across the country, which is that companies don't recognize or don't realize what they're supposed to do with this money. Now, the good news is that these banks are healthier. The bad news is they're not any healthier because they're lending money to individuals who need mortgages or auto loans. They're healthier because they're trading their book, which means they're trading the shareholder money and then they're profiting from it. And so the real question is when they're going to realize that they were saved by the taxpayer and what that really means. Now, there's one interesting piece to this, which is when they make all this money, there is a question. What do you do with it? Where should it go? Should it go back to the taxpayer? They're not the shareholder. Should it go into the bank? You'd like it to go into the bank, but there's no regulatory requirement for them to do it, and shareholders would kill them. So it's actually a complicated issue.
Let me get back to something so basic. We all studied in school, those of us who took economics, the Marxist theory. It's called the labor theory of value. You get paid for your labor, and there shouldn't be any extra money made. Now, of course, we've all gone beyond that with neoclassical economics, and we say, no, there ought to be some money for entrepreneurialism. If a guy or a woman starts a company, they risk money. They risk most of their lives to get a company going, whether it's a laundry or it's a big bank, whatever it is. They deserve to make a big profit and live better than anybody else. That's the way the system works. But these guys who make money off money. Is that necessary? I mean, I got a guy like anybody you can think of, whether it's Iacocca, Spielberg, anybody who makes something, whether it's a movie or it's a car, you say, great, he ought to make money. But this money that's being made just off of money, is it necessary for our system to have people that make... And then, by the way, are the entrepreneurs losing the money that they should be getting from this money? That's my big question.
I agree with you, and I'm not sure they should be making this type of money. When you look at the hours worked and the money that comes out on the other side, it makes no sense. The question is, why are they able to make all of this money? Well, who is...
Big question.
And the answer, oddly, is that we, all of us, are prepared to pay them more than, frankly, they deserve. The margins, the premiums on everything they do are higher. In most any other industry, the Walmart effect would happen. But on Wall Street, for some reason, we've decided these people are wizards, and we're willing to give over 20% of the profits. And you're right, it doesn't make sense. But then the issue becomes we are giving them the money. And so the question is why, and if we are, what are they supposed to do with it?
Are we better off as a country for having hedge funds, for having derivatives, for people having this securitizing of mortgages to create wealth, for deficit swaps? I mean, all this incredible stuff I can barely master even understanding its basis. Is that good for... Does that keep our big capitalist system going and we need it or it wouldn't make it?
I think it actually has become a pivotal part of this. I hate to say that because it's not a satisfying answer.
No, it's a good answer if it's true.
I think it is true. I think that this does make the world go round. You've been able, I mean, listen, over many years, we've been able to really raise what is the middle class. A lot of these things have happened because of some of this financial engineering. It's just when the financial engineering goes overboard, and unfortunately that's what we saw last year.
Okay, let me ask you about a couple of things that I find fascinating, and you know the answer to. And we've talked off the TV screen a couple of times. Last year at this time, as we went into the end of the Bush administration, there was a sense of real fear, and I've heard some from insiders in the industry how scary it truly was. Were we on the verge of a second 29, another big crash like in 1929?
I think we were, and frankly, you know, just having finished this book, I didn't appreciate, even as a reporter at that moment, that the world was really about to fall off of its axis. There was a week, and it's not actually the Lehman weekend that is so famous when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, but the weekend after, where I learned through writing the book, and it's now come out, that Morgan Stanley was about to fall, that Goldman Sachs was about to fall.
So
and by the way, there was an argument that if Goldman
Did President Bush save us by putting the steps together with Paulson and the others, by acting with expedition? Did he save this country, Bush?
I think that history will actually look fondly on this part of the Bush administration. And by the way, I'm not sure I'm going to give the credit to Bush so much as the Treasury Department and Hank Paulson for saving us. That's not to say they didn't also bring us to the brink. So there's two issues here, which is we sort of got to the brink, and then you got to give them an enormous amount of credit for getting us out of there. But there's a lot of mistakes that went into putting us where we were.
And secondly, did the big move to print a lot of money by Bernanke at the Fed, and the big move to go with over $1 trillion deficit with stimulus, et cetera, not to raise taxes, just to decrease spending, was that decision critical, that Keynesian decision of Barack Obama? But Barack Obama gets no credit for saving us from the Depression. People just say on the right and the left, bailouts, bailouts, bailouts. So he has taken the heat from his populist base, friends of mine, and right-wing people say bailout, bailout, bailout. So it seems like he's paying the price for having saved us from something that otherwise would have killed us.
There were also, though, you know, the bailout helped by the Bush administration and the Obama administration. The issue is how it has been implemented and executed. And I think where the outrage comes throughout the country is over how it was implemented. The fact that all of this money went into these banks and there were no requirements about whether you could give out these bonuses, what the incentive structure was going to be, how you were going to recapitalize these firms. We didn't do that stuff.
Here's my incentive. If they read your book, the people out there are trying to figure out how close we came to the abyss and why this money might be necessary on Wall Street, how it oils the machinery of our government, not of our economy, they can get it in this book, right? They'll learn it.
That's my hope. I think that when you actually get inside the room and see the decision-making, and it's a nuanced situation. It's not always black and white. There's not always white hats and
How many
and black
pages
hats.
is your book?
It's a long book, but it reads fast. It's about 600 pages, Chris.
Okay, you know, too big. Once you pick it up, once you put it down, you can't pick it up. Anyway, thank you. Too big to fail, the name of the book, and it's probably true. This book's got to make it how Wall Street and Washington, move the prompter, please. Move the prompter. Washington fought to save the financial system and themselves. Thank you.
Thank you,
Andrew
Chris.
Ross
I really
Sorkin, for this brilliant book. Good